Okay, welcome.
Yeah.
I hope you can hear us now.
Yeah, I can hear you, and I hope you can see the presentation.
Yes, we can see it very clearly now. So please, you can now have your presentation. So welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everyone. And I'm sorry that I could not come in person today. There are some other issues that I had to deal with, so I'm sorry about that. But I hope you will be able to follow my presentation from a distance. So what I'll be talking about is a slightly different area of non-road mobile machinery. These are areas which are off grid, so these are not connected essentially to the grid. And again, this, if we look at them, they have got a wide range of issues there. So how can these areas be electrified, and then what role can they play? That's the focus of my talk today. So this will have a few areas. I will touch on the off-grid context, particularly in the context of developing nations, and then I will kind of highlight what are the potential symbiosis that could exist between off-grid electrification and the NRMM electrification. And then I would give some reflection on the transition process. So if we look at the off-grid context, particularly in the developing countries, this issue has been continuing for a long time, almost like 2 decades now. Since 2002, 2003, the issue has been brought to the forefront. And since 2011-12, it has received international attention. But still in 2020, we see that many people around the world, they are still lacking access to electricity. And these are highly concentrated in a fairly limited number of regions. So developing Asia and sub-Saharan Africa. Over the last 10-year period, developing Asia has made significant progress in this area, whereas sub-Saharan Africa is still the dominant region where the access is missing. So about 700 million people around the world, they do not have access to electricity. But in those areas as well, we use non-road mobile machinery, and all of those machineries are dependent on fossil fuels, so diesel essentially, or fuel oil. And these machineries would also then contribute to the climate change issues. Although the rate of and intensity of that use is less, but yes, there is that scope of converting them, transiting them to the decarbonized world. And as a result, this effort, what is going on in terms of providing access to electricity in these off-grid areas, that could be an opportunity also to look at the way how non-road mobile machinery electrification could be integrated. And that's where I think the opportunity lies. Again, within the sub-Saharan African context, the distribution of people without access to electricity, it's quite fairly kind of is equally distributed in 4 regions: east, west, north, and south, with some minor variation. But about 115 to 150 million people are lacking access in these countries, in these regions. So that's where then it leads to the other issue. okay, what are the factors influencing these challenges? And one area that has been highlighted is when there is an income growth, and when the population has got higher income, they tend to have better access to electricity. So essentially, the poorer sections, poorer areas of the countries, they face these challenges in a significantly higher level. And this diagram that I have presented here is showing that a direct, straight, linear kind of relationship between a strong positive relationship between lack of access and income. So lower the income, lower the rate of electrification, and higher the income, there is a positive uh, increase in the rate of access. So eliminating poverty in those areas is essential, and that requires productive activities so that population can be engaged in productive work and generate income that could lead to their opportunities for better life as well as access to electricity. Now, one area where there is the population is highly dependent on is agriculture. I'll show that in the next slide. But what is also found here is that the agricultural income is not always directly or proportionately related to electricity access. So access is showing kind of a negative relationship, which means that the income from agriculture is not positively contributing towards the access to electricity. So people are so in that case, if the contribution to electricity, contribution from the agriculture can be improved, there is a potential for again improving the electricity access, and that's where there is a scope here, because agriculture plays an important role in many of the developing nations. And the agriculture link with employment. Employment is again significant share of the population is employed in agriculture in many countries, but again their contribution to the electricity access has not always been very significant, because although this graph shows a lot of noise here, because there is no straightforward link or relationship that is established here, but still one can identify that the access and employment, particularly employment in agriculture, is not directly correlated as such. And there again, the income generation from agriculture is directly then related to the employment opportunities in agriculture. And if the agriculture is not generating adequate income for the population, that leads to weaker relationship with the access to electricity. And the contribution of agriculture in sub-Saharan Africa, this is all related to the sub-Saharan African context, that employment is provided by agriculture, but it contributes to a minor extent, a lower extent, and that is again something which is a, an area that could be supporting the electrification process. So agriculture is crucial, but it is operating below the potential in these regions, and as a result of that, the income potential is also weak, and there is the opportunity there to improve through electrification processes. Electrification could contribute positively to agriculture, and the role of mobile non-road machinery can play an important role in that area, in that respect. So what the agriculture sector requires is mechanization, and that can lead to higher productivity, because at the moment the holdings, the agricultural activities are showing some weaknesses, and those weaknesses are arising because of holding size. The holding is small, so land holding pattern is very small, so fragmented. Yield is low, so they are compared to the international average, it's 56%, so there is potential for improvement, and mechanization level is also very low. So in order to improve the productivity and contribution of the agricultural sector, then mechanization would be an important role, and here the non-road mobile machinery would hold the key, because it's in terms of production, in terms of harvesting, in terms of post-harvesting handling, packaging, processing, storage. In all of those activities, mechanization is essential, and mechanization can be playing an important role in the process, and that's where the role of electrification and integration of this sector, agricultural sector, would be an important, very crucial. And so, in terms of machinery, I'm just focusing only on the farm side, because that's where the large section of the population is engaged at the moment. But because they are operating non-optimally, so that opportunity is a vital opportunity. But yeah, there are other areas where also the off-grid areas, particularly in the construction segment, and also there is the potential for non-mobile machinery electrification opportunity. But focusing on this part of the farm machinery, again, there are different opportunities that are available here. So one opportunity is the irrigation opportunity, and through the electrification process, irrigation opportunities could be further enhanced, because at the moment in many places irrigation is done through rain-fed irrigation, and that's not sufficient or adequate for the improvement. So in many other countries, the photovoltaic mobile irrigation systems, they have been experimented, and this could provide an opportunity. So these are facilities which could be deployed from one location to another location depending on the need, and the different alternative business models are working in those areas, and there is some innovation in the way irrigation can be provided in off-grid areas, which can then support the electricity business, off-grid electrification business, but at the same time contribute towards the agricultural output. The other areas, other machinery would be tractors, harvesters, and agro-processors. And the electrification options that have been tried, some of them are just of do-it-yourself type of designs, where on a tractor, on the tractor roof, solar panels have been added. Then charger-based systems have been charger-based battery PV charger systems. So these are systems which are connected to the electricity operator or the off-grid operator, and then the battery charging operation can be then used at different times during the daytime, or during if system allows, then at night. And then there is the other option which has been used is the mini grid connected systems. So these are so the DIY designs have been experimented in some countries, some locations, but what it is required is now to take to the next level, next stage, so that they all these options can be properly implemented, and then they can be scaled up. So the mini grid has received wide attention from the global community. So there have been significant investment, rise in the investment in the mini grid connections, and there is further opportunity for expanding those mini grid areas. And because mini grids are kind of grids, local grids that are created, so they, if they are properly designed, they can offer opportunities for integration of this transition to the electrification of non-road mobile machinery electrification as well. And this would create a kind of symbiotic relationship between the agricultural community, agricultural sector, and the off-grid businesses, and support each other. So that's where I think the potential is quite important, and exploring those opportunities through these mini grid operators, mini grid providers, and local communities, that would play an important role. How this can provide the support symbiotic relationship, because mini grids are offering in many cases affordable supplies, and with additional load, with additional demand from the agricultural supplies, agricultural need, it could reduce the cost of supply. So that would contribute to the affordability of the project, of the supply. It would help the businesses in terms of cost recovery, because the services would be on a commercial basis. So that's why the electrification of non-road machinery in the agricultural sector would contribute to the cost recovery. And on the other hand, electrification would support the income generation for the local population as well, because of higher productivity, higher yield, and better outcomes of the agricultural output. So that is the first level of benefit that is generated. And then there would be climate benefit, because electrification is being supported through renewable energy system. So most of the grids these days are solar based, as well as hybrid systems, and as a result they generate climate co-benefits. So in terms of the project, for the mini grid operator, it's a win-win situation by adding the agricultural load. And ultimately, because this is a kind of integrated holistic support system that would be generated with local relationship, that contributes to the sustainability agenda as well. However, there are several challenges. Those challenges first would be in terms of technological challenges, because maintaining and repairing some of these appliances, machineries, they require technical expertise, and that is lacking in many places. Servicing them would require some support. Initial cost can be, particularly for the agricultural machinery, can be quite high, and the demand can also be seasonal. So that could lead to some issues of integration, as well as affordability, adaptability related issues. And the willingness of the local population for investing in those areas, and promoting this kind of an alternative way of using of technology, that can also be an issue there. So yeah, there are challenges to overcome, but it offers an opportunity for moving towards the right direction in the transition process. So I'll end there with my final remarks that poor non-road machinery information availability in off-grid areas is an issue. Off-grid areas in Africa need mechanization of agricultural activities, and this has got significant potential, and off-grid electrification can benefit the NRMM sector, and both can work together to create a symbiotic relationship. Thank you. And I don't know whether the sound was okay, but I hope you could hear it well. And I'm happy to take any questions if you might have.
Nice presentation, and let's see if we can find here some interesting questions. Okay, it seems to be that today we don't have so much questions, but maybe I could ask one. So about that off-grid electrification, how do you see the it's not only implementing this technology to this rural area, so how do you see the opportunity, because in some kind of machines the hybridization could be the first step, because of course this kind of areas like Africa, you need to somehow handle the service of the machine. And people need to learn how to service power electronics, for example. So do you see that this kind of shift could start from hybrids?
That's an interesting question, because there is the main issue is the skill availability, local availability of technology, and also local skills to deliver and maintain some of these machinery. And because the non-road mobile machinery, they tend to be heavy duty in most cases, so again they can pose some challenge for the local adaptation. So that's why adaptation in the local context is an important area to focus on. And initially, yes, there is potential for hybridization, so that hybrid systems are introduced initially, and then they might help in terms of taking off, and then perhaps they could be kind of transferred into the next level. What has happened is in most of these areas, some level of diesel-based technology usage is there. So people are familiar with using the diesel-based engines. So in some areas, what they have been trying, and there are some technical studies which have been done that are showing that yes, the switching from the diesel-based engine to a battery-driven system, power pack system, that can support the activities well, and because the e-mobility is also becoming an area of importance and relevance in these countries. So parallel, I think, movement in those areas, and maybe some synergy in those areas in terms of the development and in terms of delivery could bring the technology together.
Oh, okay, thank you, Mr. Professor. I think we have one question here more, so just a minute.
Thank you. I wonder if you're tracking what C&H are doing with methane, and they've really made a big investment into agriculture and some very practical projects to turn agricultural waste into methane and then burn it at source in tractors. Do you think that is a more, let's say, immediately feasible route of decarbonising in some of the areas you're talking about compared to electrification if the grid has yet to make it that far?
Again, the methanation process that I'm not saying that electrification is the only option, but electrification has received wide attention globally, particularly because it brings electrification brings many positive benefits to the local communities, and that's where from I'm coming. But yeah, there are other technologies, particularly the agricultural waste and use of agricultural waste for energy generation, and that could be another route to the to support this kind of non-mobile machinery sector as well. Again, the methanation process itself and its use in the mobile machinery, it brings logistical challenges as well. So yeah, there are areas where these are experimented, but in terms of their scaling up, scalability in a large area, there may be issues as well. But yeah, maybe what we need to develop is a strategy for maybe a combined strategy for integrating different sources that are available locally, and then how they could be kind of delivered in a cost-effective manner. I think that would be the most important way of addressing the challenge.
Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. Professor. We still have one question here.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. When I remember 10 years ago, the first off-grid systems have been rising in rural countries, for instance, with a power class of, name it, 5 megawatt up to 10 megawatt. So technically wise, it showed up that it is really feasible to get off-grid solutions running everywhere around the world, except from of course, the question of serviceability. But yesterday we heard, for instance, for these non-road mobile machines that you need an extremely powerful charging infrastructure. And if I compare now the power class of the PV plants that you can build up and the charging demand, this will fit. It will work. Technically wise, it will work. But it is extremely costly. And the question is, how will the total cost of ownership model look like that makes the investors go into that direction? Do you have some answer on that?
Yeah. No, this is the most important issue there, because and that's where I think the most important barrier exists in the area, because in the rural context, the sizes of the systems, they are quite limited in capacity, and adding very intensive systems which are again which would be used on a maybe seasonal basis or limited time basis, they would pose issues related to the viability of the project as well. So yeah, what I think is happening in some of those experiments that I mentioned is that the scales, they have been scaled down. So the capacities of the machinery, they are being kind of reduced to a scale which could be serviced using the infrastructure available locally, and that's how a kind of a local adaptation is taking place, and that's how the introduction of battery-driven systems into the agricultural area is taking place. So when I said the mobile irrigation systems, they are being used at a very kind of low wattage system, not very high wattage systems. Similarly, the harvesters, they are also being used because the farm sizes are not the large scale farms that are being used here. So in the developed country context, the farm sizes are very big and they work at a large scale, whereas in many African country contexts and in developing country contexts, the farm sizes are very small. So reduction in the machinery size, that is one way of addressing this issue. But yeah, you have a very yeah, you have touched on the most important questions in this area, because when you reduce the scale, then also the efficiency, productivity would also perhaps not reach the level that we are expecting for the large scale farming. And that balance is very difficult to achieve. So yeah, it has to go from maybe start from a small scale, then perhaps it has to increase to the higher scale. I don't know whether I answered your question sufficiently, but yeah, that's what I
thank you.
think. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Professor. I think we have used the time today, but thank you for this research-based expert presentation. It was really, really eye-opening, let's say. And have a nice day there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time